Kandi. How this China-based Nasdaq-listed company used fake sales, EV hype to nab $160 million from U.S. investors. Nasdaq KNDI. Today we reveal what we believe to be a brazen scheme by China-based Nasdaq-listed Kandi Technologies Group to falsify revenue using fake sales to undisclosed affiliates. Our investigation included extensive on-the-ground inspection at Kandi's factories and customer locations in China, interviews with over a dozen former employees and business partners, and review of numerous litigation documents and international public records. We unmasked Kandi's unnamed top customers and found that almost 64% of Kandi's last 12 months LTM have been to undisclosed related parties. The company's largest customer, representing 55% of last 12 months LTM sales, shares a phone number with a Kandi subsidiary and shared an executive with Kandi. We visited the customer. It is based in a tiny building right next to Kandi's factory with a sign indicating that it's a Kandi company. The same building housed another entity used by Kandi as part of a separate fake sales scheme to collect illegitimate subsidies from the Chinese government, for which it was fined and sanctioned. Kandi's second largest customer, representing -9% of LTM sales, was once wholly owned by the company. Its website still integrates the Kandi logo with the customer name. Export records show that 91% of the U.S. exports by the customer went to undisclosed related party entities based out of Kandi's U.S. headquarters and warehouses. To support this, we have photographic evidence of one such Kandi customer's inventory sitting in Kandi's own warehouse. Kandi's financials corroborate our concerns. The company has consistently booked revenue it cannot collect, a classic hallmark of fake revenue. Its days sales outstanding, a common measure of revenue collection, was 278 days in the previous quarter, about 5.6 times worse than its closest auto peer. Kandi's top financial ranks have been a revolving door, another key sign of accounting irregularities. The company has had 3 auditors in the past 5 years and 4 chief financial officers in the past 4 years. Kandi's current auditor, Markham, was just handed a 3-year ban from auditing Chinese companies by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, PCAOB. Rather than firing the auditor, Kandi just reported its intention to renew the engagement. Kandi's latest issues are part of a long-running pattern, rather than an isolated incident. The architects of Kandi's original go-public transaction were charged with fraud by the SEC in 2014 for, among other things, engaging in a scheme with Kandi's still chairman/CEO to artificially inflate its stock price. In 2016, Kandi's long-serving prior auditor was ejected from the industry by the PCAOB specifically for failure to catch obvious signs of fraud at Kandi, including misappropriation by company management and undisclosed related party transactions. Kandi's latest pitch to investors is focused on an imminent U.S. launch. We show that Kandi has been launching in the U.S. for 12 years. Its first U.S. vehicles were imported illegally and seized by customs. A former distribution partner said every single car that eventually made it into the country broke. Kandi has a reputation in China for poor quality vehicles and failing to honor service warranties. The company has reported no domestic EV sales for years outside of its minority stake in a joint venture. We expect its U.S. efforts will continue to sputter. We also review Kandi's partnership with a Chinese rideshare company, which it has repeatedly claimed could lead up to 300,000 EV sales. We show that the rideshare partners app is mostly vaporware. It has almost no users and isn't even ranked among China's top 50 rideshare apps. Lastly, we address the company's much touted battery swap program, which is preliminary and hopelessly behind peers, including Kandi's own partner Geely. Without a meaningful number of cars on the road, Kandi's battery swap efforts simply cannot make sense. Kandi raised $160 million from the U.S. investors this month alone. All told, we think Kandi has engaged in a major fake revenue scheme, hyping its story to U.S. investors in order to take advantage of our regulatory gaps, enabling China-based companies to siphon cash from U.S. capital markets with impunity. Initial disclosure. After extensive research, we have taken a short position in shares of Kandi Technologies. This report represents our opinion, and we encourage every reader to do their own due diligence. Please see our full disclaimer at the bottom of the report. Introduction. Electric vehicle euphoria. Many investors have come to the realization that electric vehicles are the future of the auto industry. In rational times, such investors might express this view by picking companies that are best of breed, the likely industry winners. But this is 2020, so instead, a psychotic flood of speculative capital has lifted all the companies in the sector, regardless of quality. Readers of this piece are likely familiar with our views on Nikola, the electric vehicle brainchild of Trevor Milton, a man who has forever enshrined gravity in the list of zero-emission energy sources, perhaps the company's only genuine innovation to date. Many investors avoided Nikola due to its speculative status as a pre-revenue newcomer. Some of these investors may have instead found Kandi, seeing it as a revenue-generating EV manufacturer with a long history. Background. Basics on the business. Before we dive into the specifics, let's review the basics. Kandi went public in the US in mid-2007 via a reverse merger into the over-the-counter market. It then uplisted and has traded on the Nasdaq since March 2008. The company has been run since its inception as a public company by Xiaoming Hu, who serves as chairman, CEO, and president. Historically, the company manufactured and sold ATVs, go-karts, and electric vehicles. Currently, Kandi's main focus is electric cars and related parts. Kandi has announced several initiatives that are key to its business case, which we will review thoroughly. The U.S. launch of Kandi's small, low-cost electric cars, China's domestic rideshare market, which Kandi hopes to significantly participate in, and the company's battery swap technology, which has indicated will be spun off and taken public in Shanghai. The company's market cap has expanded to over $1 billion, and as of this writing, trading negative $13.62 per share, more than 6 times its 52-week lows. The company has raised $160 million from U.S. public market investors this month alone. Part 1. Kandi's extensive history of fraud allegations. Investors in Kandi seem largely unaware of the company's history of credible fraud allegations during its tenure as a public company. 2014. The architects of Kandi's reverse merger deal to go public were charged with fraud by the SEC for, among other things, engaging in a scheme with Kandi's chairman/CEO to artificially inflate its stock price. According to an SEC complaint, Kandi has taken public on the OTC by a group of individuals that engaged in multiple market manipulation schemes. Architects of the scheme were charged with fraud by the SEC in 2014. The complaint included allegations that the individuals had engaged in a fraudulent scheme to inflate the price and volume of Kandi. According to SEC prosecutors, the scheme was concocted with the help of Kandi's CEO. Excerpt. Paragraph 132. From approximately April 2009 through at least December 2010, Tarbaz, Lockhart, and Becker orchestrated a scheme to defraud investors of a third Chinese issuer, Kandi Technologies Group Incorporated, primarily through manipulative trading in Kandi stock. Paragraph 133. The manipulative trading was done with Scienter. In addition, the manipulative trading was done for the purposes of creating a false or misleading appearance of an active market in the stock and inducing the stock sale or purchase by others. Paragraph 134. Kandi was listed on Nasdaq on March 18, 2008 and was trading as high as $6.82 per share on April 2008. However, by the end of 2008, Kandi's stock price had dropped to less than $1. Paragraph 135. Tarbaz and Lockhart held large positions in Kandi securities that they sought to liquidate. Paragraph 136. In approximately September 2009, Tarbaz and Lockhart traveled to China to meet with Kandi's CEO. In that meeting, Kandi's CEO reached an oral agreement with Tarbaz and Lockhart as follows. A. Kandi agreed to provide Tarbaz and Lockhart with 350,000 additional shares of Kandi. B. Despite Kandi's prior oral agreement that the Kelly Group would cover certain expenses related to maintaining Kandi's public listing for the first 2 years after going public, Kandi agreed to cover certain additional of its own post-public expenses. C. In exchange, Tarbaz and Lockhart agreed to pay U.S. stock promoters to tout Kandi, and D. Tarbaz and Lockhart further agreed to orchestrate U.S. stock promoters to manipulate the trading of Kandi stock to increase its price to at least $3 per share within 3 months. The individuals settled the charges in December 2019, despite the chairman CEO of Kandi being identified as playing a critical role in a conspiracy to manipulate its own stock. Neither he nor the company were ever charged by the SEC. 2016. Kandi's long-serving auditor had its registration revoked by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, PCAOB, specifically for failing to catch obvious signs of fraud at Kandi. Kandi's auditor for most of its publicly traded existence was Albert Wong and Company, AWC, a small auditor based in Hong Kong. AWC served as Kandi's auditor from mid-2009 until its dismissal in April 2016. A month after its dismissal, in May 2016, the PCAOB issued an order revoking AWC's registration, fining it $10,000 and barring its principals from associating with any registered public accounting firm due to its failure to catch obvious signs of fraud at Kandi. The order focused on AWC's audit failures relating to Kandi, mentioning the company by name 151 times. The PCAOB found, among other failures, that AWC failed to implement procedures designed to provide reasonable assurance of detecting material fraud or illegal acts. Summary: this matter concerns respondents' violations of PCAOB rules and standards in connection with the issuance of audit reports on the consolidated financial statements of Kandi Technologies Group, Kandi or the company, for the years ended December 31, 2010, 2011, and 2012. As detailed below, respondents, among other things, failed repeatedly to exercise due professional care and professional skepticism to obtain sufficient appropriate audience evidence with respect to financial statement assertions, to include procedures designed to provide reasonable assurance of detecting fraud or illegal acts that would have had a direct and material effect on the determination of financial statement amounts, and to prepare and maintain adequate audit documentation. The PCAOB report went into detail about obvious signs of theft by Kandi's chairman/CEO and undisclosed related party transactions. The PCAOB found that AWC failed to take issue with Kandi's chairman and at least one Kandi Finance employee, referred to as cashier, reporting cash held in their personal accounts as belonging to the business. The auditors simply included in the cash held in personal accounts in the company's reported cash balance. The effect of this was likely a reporting of an inflated cash balance, while direct evidence of misappropriation was ignored, per the report. Paragraph 25. Kandi management represented to respondents that the $3 million temporarily held by the cashier in her personal account was at the request of Kandi's bank. However, for all of the cash and restricted cash balances held in the personal accounts of the cashier and chairman, respondents failed to consider management's rationale of having company funds held in the personal bank accounts of the cashier and chairman, and whether the stated business rationale, or lack thereof, suggested that the transaction may have been entered into to engage in fraudulent financial reporting or conceal the misappropriation of assets. Paragraph 26. At no time during the Kandi 2010 audit did respondents consider whether the cash amounts reported as restricted and held in the chairman's personal accounts represented personal loans from Kandi that might constitute illegal acts, or for which disclosure would have been required as related party transactions. The PCAOB report referred to Kandi's responses as evasive and repeatedly called into question the reliability of its representations and integrity. The PCAOB report went into further detail about obvious undisclosed related party transactions at Kandi, including those relating to Kandi USA. The report also suggested that management made adjustments to disguise recognition of related party revenue. Respondents failed to assess the risk of fraud related to these last-minute adjustments to reflect the Kandi USA revenue as being from Dingy, including whether these adjustments were motivated by management's desire to conceal Kandi's transactions with Kandi USA in order to avoid related party disclosures. Note that elsewhere in this report, we have detailed specific and obvious signs that Kandi is still engaging in extensive, undisclosed related party transactions through its U.S. operations. Despite the PCAOB barring AWC and its principals from auditing public companies for failing to identify clear signs of fraud at Kandi, domestic regulators have not brought any enforcement action against Kandi. 2016, the Chinese government announced that Kandi had been involved in a scheme through its joint venture to obtain illegitimate EV subsidies through the use of sham sales to related parties. In 2013, the Chinese government announced large subsidies to producers of electric vehicles. That same year, Kandi and Chinese EV manufacturer Geely established a joint venture to produce electric vehicles. According to Chinese media, the joint venture generated subsidies through a scheme involving buying and selling to or from related parties. The gist of the scheme was as follows. China provided subsidies to both the producers and purchasers of electric vehicles. Kandi gained one subsidy through its manufacturing joint venture with Geely, then sold the cars to a related party entity that purported to be in a rental or car sharing business, collecting the other. The scheme worked because Kandi's cars were so cheap. The cost to build the vehicles was actually less than the subsidies, so Kandi just needed to build as many cheap cars as possible to cash in on government money. In 2016 to 2017, media reported on the results of a Chinese government investigation which found that Kandi and its JV partner, among others, had thousands of idled vehicles and was involved in fraudulently obtaining state subsidies. As a result, Kandi's JV partner was fined and Kandi was forced to write off $3.3 million in subsidies. In 2019, media stumbled across a car lot where thousands of Kandi cars were apparently sitting unused and had been deteriorating for years, believed to be part of the same scheme. 2017, Kandi restated its financials to account for previously undisclosed related party deals and promised to mend its ways. On March 7, 2017, the company acknowledged in an SEC filing that in response to questions from the SEC's Division of Corporate Finance, it needed to restate its historical financials to separately identify certain related party accounts and make corrections to the classification of notes receivable and notes payable in the company's statements of cash flow. The filing stated that investors should not rely on its financial reporting or any earnings releases or other communications from 2014 to 2016. The same filing disclosed that Kandi's accounting may have material weaknesses and that the PCAOB revoked the registration of its prior auditor due to its deficiencies. Part 2. We think most of Kandi's sales are fabricated. Kandi was not charged by regulators for any undisclosed self-dealing, despite extensive historical evidence suggesting a pervasive pattern. Part of the issue, we think, is that U.S. regulators have limited access to audit and regulatory information from China, leaving them hamstrung in their overseas enforcement efforts. In 2017, the company promised to do better going forward, but given the lack of regulatory oversight and consequences, why would it? Background: Kandi's top customer from 2014 to 2017, representing 63% to 97% of its sales, was its joint venture partner. But following the subsidy scandal, sales to the JV partner evaporated. Since 2014, Kandi's reported EV sales have been driven by its joint venture with domestic auto manufacturer Geely. But Kandi's sales to its JV partner declined sharply by the end of 2018 following revelations of a Chinese subsidy scandal and subsequent subsidy policy adjustments. Through its overgenerous subsidies, the Chinese government inadvertently acted as a dedicated buyer of Kandi's cars, many of which ended up just rusting in a parking lot, as shown above. Without the subsidy scheme run through its joint venture entity, Kandi needed legitimate buyers for its products. In Q1 2019, Kandi acknowledged on its quarterly investor call that it didn't sell any EV products due to a transitional period. Kandi's financials show that its proportion of sales to its joint venture rapidly declined and have essentially vanished in 2020. This is corroborated by Chinese media sources, which reported that the company sold 0 vehicles domestically in 2019 and early 2020. Kandi's joint venture with Geely was originally 50-50, but Geely bought most of Kandi's stake in 2019, leaving Kandi with 22%. The entity is now focused on manufacturing an electric SUV called the Maple 30X. Given Kandi's lack of reported revenues from the affiliate, it is unclear what current role, if any, Kandi plays in its manufacturing. Despite the virtual elimination of Kandi's major customer, Kandi's revenue somehow remained stable, with the help of 2 unnamed mystery customers. Usually, sales drop when a firm suddenly loses its business from a customer comprising 63 to 97% of sales. Incredibly, that has not been the case with Kandi. Its sales actually rose slightly following the 2018 decline of its top customer, then leveled off. Kandi redacts the name of its top customers, which have accounted for almost 64% of last 12 months' sales. 2 unnamed customers have played a big role in plugging up the sales hole left behind by the decline of Kandi's joint venture. Kandi redacts the name of these key customers on its financials, referring to them as Customer A and Customer B. We have identified the names of Kandi's top customers. Prior to September 2019, Kandi disclosed the names of its top customers. Here is an example from June 2019. Major customers: Jinhua Chaomeng Automobile Sales Company Limited, Zhejiang Cookie Sports Technology Company Limited, Kandi Electric Vehicles Group Company Limited, and its subsidiaries. As of September 2019, the company began redacting the names of its top customers except for the name of its related party joint venture partner. Major customers: Customer A, Customer B, Kandi Electric Vehicles Group Limited and its subsidiaries, related party, Customer D. The remaining customers, according to Kandi's disclosures, are sales to unrelated party customers. We were able to identify Kandi's top customers by connecting the dots between the percentage of sales associated with each customer in the prior periods when the names were unredacted. For example, customer concentration disclosures from June 2020 reference the customer concentration numbers from the prior year when the names were unredacted. Once unmasked, We examined the customer relationships more closely and found alarmingly close ties to Kandi. Kandi's new top customer, accounting for 55% of LTM sales, shares a phone number with a Kandi subsidiary. According to Chinese corporate records available through Corporate Records Service (QCC), key customer Jinhua Chaoning Automobile Sales shares its phone number with a 100% Kandi-owned subsidiary. Here is Jinhua's corporate record with its phone number highlighted, including an indication that it shares the number with 3 other entities. The second name on the list of shared numbers is Zhejiang Kandi Intelligent Power Exchange Technology Company Limited. We called the number to see if any company the phone number belonged to. This was the conversation which we recorded. Hello. Hello. Are you Jinhua Chaoning? No. What company are you? Who are you? I'm looking for Jinhua Chaoning and had this number. They moved away many years ago. Okay then, are you Kandi? Who are you? I'm looking for these companies. I want to check if this phone number belongs to Chaoning or Kandi or who. Hangs up. We visited the address of the customer and found them based in a small building adjacent to a Kandi factory. The customer had Kandi's name in its signage, indicating that it is part of Kandi. The addresses of the two companies are also almost identical, per the same corporate records. Both are based in plots G-01-03 and G-02-01, an industrial park in Jinhua City, per QCC records. First, we viewed the custom address using Baidu Maps. It shows a Kandi factory. Then we sent an investigator to the industrial park several months ago in order to confirm ourselves. We asked the security guard working the Kandi gate about Chaoning, the customer, and he had never heard of them. However, we found a small building adjacent to the factory with a sign that named the purported customer as Jinhua Kandi Electric Vehicle Chaoning. The customer address matched the address of the key undisclosed related party entity involved Kandi's earlier fake sales subsidy scheme. As noted above, the Chinese government had previously sanctioned Kandi and its JV partner over a scheme to collect illegitimate government subsidy payments through fake EV sales. The entity used to generate the fake sales in that scheme was named Left Middle Right Company Limited and is based out of the exact same small building as Kandi's new top customer. Here's an overhead view of the Kandi factory and its purported customer subsidy scheme entities. Kandi appears to be simply recycling its old fake sales playbook, except this time the target is US investors rather than the Chinese government. Kandi's new top customer shared an executive with Kandi, further evidencing close ties between the two companies. Further evidencing a long connection, a 2010 article detailed how an individual named Hu Yiheng, a Kandi employee, held a senior position at Kandi, acting as office director. Yu Yiheng is the name of Chaoning's legal representative since June 17, 2013, and is also a 30% shareholder of Chaoning, per corporate records through QCC.com. In short, Kandi's largest customer is based at a Kandi factory, shares a phone number with a Kandi subsidiary, integrates Kandi into its own signage, and is based in the same building as another entity involved in a fake sales scheme for Kandi, and shared a key executive with Kandi. We do not think sales to this entity are legitimate. Kandi's second largest customer, named Kuke, accounts for 9% of LTM sales. It was previously wholly owned by Kandi and still has an unusually tight relationship. Kandi's second largest customer is Zhejiang Kuke Sports Technology Company Limited, Kuke. The customer accounted for 11% of last quarter's sales and 9% of Kandi's LTM sales. In an obvious link between the two entities, we found that Kandi previously owned Kuke up until 2008, right around the time of Kandi's IPO, when it was sold to two private individuals. In fact, corporate records on QCC still refer to the company as being part of Kandi. Kuke's website still shows close ties to Kandi. The homepage features a large image of Kandi's factory, and the company's logo integrates Kandi with its corporate name. The site also features the brand name Jaskol, which is a registered trademark owned by Kandi. Export records show negative 91% of Kuke's U.S. exports have gone to three entities based out of Kandi America's addresses. In other words, Kuke is buying from Kandi, then selling right back to obvious undisclosed related parties of Kandi. Kuke's website indicates that exports to North America comprise a vast majority of its business. We reviewed export records through data aggregator Import Genius. Using the earliest records available, dating back to October 2017, we found that over 90.9% of Kuke's exports to the U.S. by weight went into three entities. 1. Massimo Motorsports LLC, 2. Lil Pickup Incorporated, and 3. Jazz Motorsports Incorporated. Here's a sample of the records showing Kuke shipping to Massimo, Lil Pickup, and Jazz. As we will show momentarily, state corporate records and litigation documents reveal that Massimo, Jazz, and Lil Pickup are based out of addresses associated with Kandi America, making them clear related parties. 30% of Kuke's historical exports were to Massimo Motorsports LLC, an entity based out of Kandi America's headquarters and owned by the founder and manager of Kandi America. Massimo Motorsports is based out of Kandi's U.S. headquarters in Texas and is owned by David Shanshun Shan, a founder and current manager of Kandi's U.S. subsidiary. Here are Massimo's corporate records showing the address matching Kandi's U.S. headquarters. After buying Kandi products through Kandi's customer, Massimo Motorsports then sells products right back to Kandi. Massimo, an undisclosed related party entity of Kandi America, is therefore both a top customer and a top supplier of /to Kandi. We view this as a brazen, clear circular sales scheme. That is fake revenue. Once Massimo receives product from Kandi's key customer, Kuke, who does it sell its products to? Evidence show that one of Massimo's key customers is Kandi. Kandi began redacting the names of its suppliers in late 2019, using the same trick we used to unredact its customer names. we see that Massimo has been Candy's supplier C, representing 25% of Candy's purchases in the first 6 months of 2020 and 15% of the same 2019 period. To recap, Kandi sells to top customer Kuke, which then exports to Massimo based out of Kandi's US headquarters, and then Massimo sells products right back to Kandi. 52% of Kuke's historical exports were to Jazz Motorsports Incorporated, an entity that shared an executive with Kandi and was based out of the exact same address as a branch of Kandi USA. Moving right along, Kandi's customer Kuke also exports to an entity called Jazz Motorsports. Jazz Motorsports Incorporation documents list a Rancho Cucamonga, California address that matches the address previously listed for a branch of Kandi USA. Both entities shared an executive officer as well. 9% of Kuke's historical exports went up to Lil Pickup Incorporated, an entity that also leases warehouse space at Kandi America's headquarters. We have photographic evidence showing Lil Pickup inventory sitting in Kandi America's warehouse, covered with a tarp. Export records show that Kuke also regularly exports to Lil Pickup, a company run by Renfeng Wang, who appears to share a business relationship with Kandi America founder and manager David Chan. Recent litigation records revealed that Lil Pickup LLC rents space at 301 West Miller Road in Garland, Texas, the headquarters for Kandi America. The records even include a picture of Lil Pickup inventory sitting in a warehouse covered with a tarp dated from July of this year. Kandi has consistently booked revenue that it can't collect, a classic sign of fake revenue. Kandi had 278 days of sales outstanding, 5.6 times higher than its closest competitor. Kandi's financial statements support our findings. When most companies sell a product, they eventually collect the revenue and convert it into cash. This is especially true in the auto industry, where cars are usually financed or paid for on the spot before they are driven off the lots at dealerships. Kandi seems to sell plenty of product, but then appears to have an incredibly difficult time collecting and converting it to cash. The key measure of revenue collection is days sales outstanding, which measures the average days it takes to convert accounts receivable into cash. Kandi's DSO in the previous June quarter was 278 days, 5.6 times its closest auto manufacturing competitor, making it an outrageous outlier. The company has attempted to justify its revenue collection failure by stating that its credit terms are typically 180 to 360 days after delivery. This doesn't add up. Very few industries allow customers to pay a year after they receive the product, and as seen above, automobiles clearly are one of them. In Kandi's most recent September quarter, its trade receivables balance declined, but a new category of unusual receivable that has ballooned in its place. Kandi recorded a negative $51 million loan to third party as an other receivable in the most recent quarter, up from $13.7 million in the prior quarter. The mystery loan did not seem to exist a year ago.